mean, it is, as you know, again, I mean, I invite you to look at any campaign, be it in Virginia or any place where you just don't run from Washington. You don't run, I mean, John McCain, who had just an enormous amount of experience, both in the military and in government, in September became the agent of change.
And Hillary Clinton, too, at one point in the primary said, I've been working on behalf of change for 20 years,
right.
Which is it obviously hasn't worked.
Exactly. But it's what people knew. Somebody that isn't tainted by this big and powerful system. And as I say, it's funny because I know so many lawmakers that I talk to who have been around for so long, who certainly are discouraged about a lot of things, but who do come away in some ways really idealistic about how far things have come since they first arrived. But that's not what comes out. I mean, what you tend to see is kind of the reflection of the public coming back. You know, they think we're in it for ourselves, and certainly in some microcosm there are certainly politicians who are in it for themselves. But it's as I say, there's more Mr. Smith in more politicians than you might believe, kind of on the face of it. But they don't know how to. Sometimes realism doesn't sell that well on the campaign trail. You're not allowed to make mistakes. You're not allowed to go punch reporters and stay for the next election. And I was watching the meltdown on the Senate floor with Mr. Smith as he gets, and I kept thinking, I wonder what the lead is. I wonder what the lead is, because he's getting kind of really close to the edge of the cliff, and you're wondering if the next is, showing signs of a mental instability. I mean, what would have been the actual lead out of that? And I think that there's very little room for politicians to be genuine, and I don't actually blame the politicians for that. I think that tends to be the public wants a certain image, and there's not a lot of room in there to be Mr. Smith without being looked at as a rube or as a crazy person or as whatever it is that people consider.
What are the screwball comedy themes? I mean, the male-female relationship is interesting also. How is this in the screwball comedy tradition?
Well, in a strange way, he's taking the place of the sort of screwball Dane or the dizzy Dane, because he comes to Washington and he's so wide-eyed that he doesn't really know how to behave. He does strange word calls, and mostly there's this sort of one scene that gets at that connection between his naivete and his kind of sexual awkwardness. The whole sort of subplot is Senator Kane's daughter. And I don't know if you've noticed that, but the way the scene is filmed, you don't actually sort of see his face. There's just all of this very sort of funny business with his hat. He doesn't know what to do with it. He's kind of dropping it. And the sense that he's still a boy. He's the boy's candidate. There's something boyish about him. And that his sort of sexual notions are also, in some sense, kind of funny, sort of immature. So you come in with Clarissa, and she is not so much a screwball, it's a kind of romantic comedy. Clarissa is in some ways in charge of educating him, and not only sort of telling him about how Washington works, but bring him up to speed. And there's one just lovely kind of screwball romantic comedy line where one of his handlers, as he's bringing him into the station, says, things move faster down here. And he goes, yes, Senator, we're going to have to get a load here. And I think that's the screwball element. He is an outsider. He may be principled. He may bring a certain kind of idealism, but it's in low gear. And this is the modern world. Things happen quickly. You have to be a sort of quick learner. And you also have to sort of spot the good guys and the bad guys, and also the women who are using you and the women who are, in fact, in your corner. And so part of the film is about his education into sort of political reality. But also there's a kind of story where he's growing up as a man and finally gets the sort of right mate at the end. That's kind of curtailed at the end. And also very interesting is Clarissa, who has to sort of make the first declaration of love because She's still not quite at that stage, but when she declares love for him and also tells him how to continue with the filibuster, those two plots sort of come together. In that sense, the film knows what it's doing. As I said, once it gets to that point of exposing the volatility of the we the people, for the people audience that he thinks he's speaking for, it has to sort of take a kind of preposterous way out.
And it has a different ending at one point in terms of showing them more back in the home state than they...
I think that there was an original plan that was going to go back to the home state, but that, I mean, we were just talking about the realism doesn't play. He knew that he had this great sort of dramatic set piece in the filibuster. He had to end it there, otherwise it's really an anticlimax. But nobody knew exactly. I don't think anybody still could tell you getting into that. I mean, it would be really hard to imagine one even, so many 70 years later.
I think probably, I actually kept expecting when we first showed the film that it would end up back in this home state, wherever it was, with one of those pigeons returning.
Yeah.
I said, you never kind of went back to the pigeons, right? They went off and that was the last
That's like a violation of the you start the fire and not give the guy.
Right, there's a pigeon that has to go home.
Pigeon was a loose end. That's right. But the other thing I guess that struck me is how much now authenticity has become, people have become so suspect of authenticity. Because I can guarantee you that most people who saw the picture of Sarah Palin and her waiters when they were out fishing went on a photo op. And a lot of that, interestingly, started with Ronald Reagan, who really was, in some ways, really was kind of Mr. Smith. But he was the one, I mean, Sam Donaldson, who was a White House reporter at the time, had this great line about Ronald Reagan. He said, I, meaning Sam Donaldson, could go on air at any time and say, this president is the worst thing that's ever happened to the environment, but the White House will put him out there that day hugging an eagle. And that takes over everything. So people have totally come to distrust what they see about their politicians. So authenticity is a very, very hard sell right now.
Sadly, very sadly, we're going to have to wrap this one. Buses are pulling up right now. And I'd like everyone to round of applause.